didn't do that before, but it's now recording. So we actually spared the public that whole thing.
And the public has been admitted.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
This is this Community Board 2 Manhattan Landmarks Committee meeting, a second one of this month. And we have one application. The applicant's familiar, I'm sure, with the routine, so I won't go into that. But for the public, if anyone is new, there'll be public comments after the committee has had its comments. And the time limit is 3 minutes, please. And after that time, we will then have a business session for which everyone's welcome to stay, but only the committee may deliberate. Thank you. The application is 44 West 8th Street to demolish the existing building and construct a new 5-story plus penthouse building. When you're ready, please begin.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ward Dennis from Higgins Way Partners. My colleague Sarah Ripple is here as well. Also joining us, Margaret Grossman. Sorry. No, sorry, something. Sorry. Margaret Grossman and Ramon Maislin from T3 Development, and Idan Noir from IN Architecture and is in workshop. Okay. Sorry. So the project that we're here for is a bit overlag. 44 and 46 West 8th Street, which is this existing 1-story building on the south side of West 8th, between McDougal and 6th Avenue. This building was constructed in 1955, replacing, as you'll see in a moment, 2 older buildings from the 1880s. This is just an existing blockscape view. The building to our east, which is at the corner of McDougal and West 8th Street, is currently under construction. And the building is up, but it's all scaffolded and everything. So most of the pictures that you're going to see are going to show the renderings from that building, which was approved by Landmark some years ago. But our site is this 1-story, and then immediately to our west is a 5-story, actually pair of tenements built together. This is the historic photo of what existed on our site prior to the 1950s. There was a 5-story tenement as well as a 3-story former stable that was later converted to restaurants and other uses. Both of these buildings were demolished in 1955 and in 1956. The existing building, which previously looked like this, the Seafair restaurant, was constructed. Over the years, it's been a series of restaurants and other commercial uses. Nothing of the 1956 fabric remains. Certainly nothing of the 19th century fabric remains. Both of these buildings were built in the late 1870s, early 1880s. And these are just some historic plans and other drawings showing, maybe this small. Oh, that's sorry, Mark.
Yeah, what's on
Could you make this smaller?
Yeah.
I was just doing it on my screen, but that's not what we're saying.
That okay, or do you want to get rid of it altogether?
Either is fine, but yeah, it's just, I mean, so again, the historic buildings from the circa 1880, the plans for the new building in 1956. And then this is the designation photo from 1969. In the 1970s, Landmarks approved a number of alterations to this, which is clearly a non-contributing building within the district. And this is sort of the most recent picture from when it was last occupied, was most recently Goodwill and other tenants on the east side.
Excuse me for interrupting, but if I turn off that screen, then when you point to things on the screen, they can't see it. So describe what you're pointing to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So this is just a preview of the building that we're proposing. So you can get some context before I talk about other aspects of the project. But as you can see, it is a 5-story building with a 1-story setback penthouse, mechanical and elevator bulkheads on top. Similar in height to the buildings to our east and the buildings to our west. Obviously, the historic buildings to our west, but similar in height also to the new building to our east. The facade is constructed of brick, and the base, the storefronts and residential entries are constructed of terracotta. And then just some neighborhood context for you, some of the things that we were looking at in terms of precedents on the block. Obviously, West 8th between 6th Avenue and 5th Avenue. Interestingly, has a lot of 25-foot wide buildings from earlier development, particularly on the north side. Most of the buildings on the north side have been adapted and converted to retail use at the basement and ground floor over time. And then the buildings immediately to our west, also 25 feet wide. So we sort of looked at this. We have about a 41-foot or so, or is it 50?
It's almost 50.
Almost 50-foot frontage. So one of the things that we're looking at is breaking up that frontage to recognize the 25-foot wide context of the street. Then obviously many brick buildings on our block, also many brick buildings that use decorative brick work throughout the district. These are just 2 examples, one on West 9th Street, and the other on West 4th. And as you can see in these right-hand images, just different eras and different types of decorative brickwork. As you'll see when Edon gets into the design, we have a very richly chamfered brickwork that brings a lot of texture and depth to the facade. Just some precedents on new buildings, particularly new buildings that use similar stylings. These are from Greenpoint and Brooklyn Heights Historic District. I think more relevant, obviously for us, and which you will be familiar with, are the different types of new buildings, contemporary designs within the Greenwich Village Historic District. 11 Christopher, 97 Greenwich Avenue, 538 Hudson, and 11 Jane Street. All of these are contemporary design buildings. All of them use brickwork in particular, and brick and terracotta in some cases, to develop a really rich textured facade. And we think that those are good precedents for what we're doing. And with that, I will ask Don to take us through the design.
Thanks. So again, Edon Noah from your workshop architecture. Thank you for spending your Monday night with us and taking the time to listen. So, for us, I think that the design would really begin as a catalyst was walking through the district, especially, West 8th Street and beyond. You really get the sense of this wonderful eclectic nature. Some call it a hodgepodge, but we found it to be kind of a fantastic eclecticism. And we were really taken by the small scale. So I think if we just go back, page 9. Oops. Sorry, there's a lag. Oh. Doesn't like page 8. There we go. So as you can see here, we actually looked at the Sanborn map, I believe 1904, and there was a Paris map from 1854. And you can really see that including our site, which is here in yellow, it's currently shown as 50 feet roughly. Before that, it was 2 lots that were 25. So that's really what started, our design thinking in terms of how can we bring the scale down rather than go with the flow of consolidation of lots. So we really started to think about that and how we can start to express that in our design.
You don't watch the computer screen.
Yeah, gotcha, okay. I see the lag is somewhere in the digital ether between this and that. Okay, so here, what we're really trying to emphasize with our diagrammatic analysis of our existing site is this 25-foot delineation. And we found it even more curious that the building on the right that was existing before the taxpayer that's there now seems to further delineate the kind of 25 into 2 symmetrical 12.5. So that became even more curious to us. And we started to really think about how do we amplify the pedestrian experience? How do we stay away from kind of a monolithic storefront experience? How do we go with more frequent bays and really try and, you know, bring back some of that that seems to have gotten lost over the years?
What was your name again? I couldn't understand before.
Idan Naor. So this is, if you will, a kind of amphibian drawing. It's overlaying a kind of analysis of the site that you previously saw with a beginning of our proposal. So what we're really seeing is that we're prioritizing the historic void that was there on the site as much as we're prioritizing the buildings that were there. So the void itself isn't per se super important, but what we found really interesting is that the building heights on the street previously were all different. And it added to this kind of very dynamic experience of walking through the site. So we tried to address this in 2 ways. One was to go with kind of a more frequent bay strategy. And so we went with 6. We also looked at 5, but 6 allowed us to kind of harken the ghost of the past of the site, which is 2 25-foot lots. And 6 as a symmetrical number allowed us to kind of reference that. In addition, we really started to think about how can we articulate through this kind of language of craft and brickwork that we find in the district, how can we start to express that on the upper right quadrant and kind of reference this void, break up the mess. So the design kind of started to evolve in this direction. And here, this was kind of a pivotal moment for us, looking at this historic photo on the right. This is, I think, from 1914 or so. And you can see our site, these 2 buildings. And if you look on the left, this is a monochromatic view of our proposal. And if I ask you to squint your eyes, you might be able to see that we're kind of referencing the massing of what was there, purely with kind of an attention to the brickwork. And you can also see that we're kind of using engaged pilasters as a way to reinforce this kind of dynamic experience and bringing a scale as much as we can of a 50-foot building to the human scale. Another thing that we really tried to do, is use the storefront again to express less monolithic storefront and more cabinet of curiosities. So when you walk through, we've recessed, we've kind of taken advantage of the liberty of the code and we've pushed back the entrances 3 feet. And we leave some of these, 1 foot, and we're really trying to play with as much depth as our clients will allow us to take, and they've been very generous in that respect, in articulating the depth of this side.
And can you articulate the code requirements or stipulations
Yeah, you
that
can.
you're dealing with?
Sure, there's many, but in this, that's why I have no hair left, but the, so there's a code requirement for up to 50% is allowed to be recessed 3 feet back of the storefront. So as you see here, we have 6 bays, so we're allowed to go up to 3 bays, up to 3 feet. So we've taken as much depth as we can. And this is looking southeast, sorry. This one is southwest. And you can see, this starts to become also a stage set for light, the brickwork at the top right quadrant, as opposed to the other quadrants of the building. So this area, as opposed to these, really starts to become a stage set for light, to become, a dynamic experience for those who might be curious enough to walk down the street and look up. We expect it to be a curious moment that changes throughout the day. So we did a lot of light studies to show how this really picks up at a certain angle as opposed to these guys. And you can see the difference here. So again, this is kind of a monochromatic elevation of our proposal. And we hope, another thing that we really tried to address is how we sit next to our neighbors. So we have this, historic tenement on the right, and we have this new neighbor on the left. There's a few things that we addressed. One of them, is the height. One of them is the storefront elevation. The third one is even thinking about materiality. The one on the right has a historic red brick. The one on the left has proposed gray brick. And so we chose an orange brick that contrasts with both, and we hope juxtaposes kind of harmoniously and sits well with its neighbors. So this is the color elevation. And this is a rendering. Nope. So this is a rendering. This is a rendering looking southeast. And this again is a rendered perspective of our new neighbor to the left is still in construction, as well as the historic tenement on the right. And then this is looking towards Sixth Avenue. And you can start to get a hint here. I wish I could zoom in, but I don't want to, jumble this too much. You can really start to get a sense of how the light starts to play with kind of this chamfered corner and the setbacks on the brick. And we also took a lot of effort, and we've been in contact with LPC, and we've got some feedback about the storefront, which we addressed, to try and really think about how in a very minimal and subtle way we can transition from the residential to the commercial storefront. So we've done that. We hope it's something that reads like a cascading of the residential to the commercial. And we also thought it was kind of interesting that this is a district that largely had stooped entrances, and then it became a commercial corridor. So there's some, dialogue that we tried to entertain there about how those two materials meet and kind of what the legacy of the site is. So in terms of materials, all the way at, the top, we're proposing a standing seam panelized metal. And then here at the top level, we have terracotta that matches the terracotta at the storefront, and those will be custom panels. And then the residential portion is Roman, this beautiful, vibrant orange red Roman brick, manufactured by Peterson out of Denmark. And here we can see an elevation. Here we just wanted to show how we're actually achieving this top right quadrant. So this is all the way at the top. We're looking at the cornice at the top, and then kind of the top level of this portion of the building. And we're really just trying to articulate how we go from left to right, and that's really the brickwork. So we're showing the dimensions for how that happens. We have a subtle variation on the setbacks. We're working with the specific dimensions of the brick to achieve this. Cornice detail. So we're going, we've taken a lot of care to think about how we go from soldier courses up at the cornice to a stack bond on the engaged pilasters. We have, again, soldier courses up above the lintels, at the window openings, and so forth. So here at the storefront, this is a good explanation of what we previously discussed with the setbacks. So you have three entrances. This is the residential entrance all the way to the left. After the egress door, that's all the way to the left. It's the opaque one. So starting at the glazed entrance is the residential lobby. Next one over is a community facility. And then we have 3 bays for retail, with the entrance all the way to the right. Here we're just showing that we're trying to really think about all the building services and make them as compact and tolerable as possible aesthetically. So we're putting them all the way on the left side that has the metal. We're trying to match the housings for the cameras so that they match the terracotta color that I'll show you in renderings in the succeeding slides. We're proposing an engraved address inside the terracotta panel. And then we have blade signage for the retail all the way to the right. That you can see here on the right of the image. So this is kind of a more professionally rendered view. You can see that, what we hope is the lovely brick detailing in the way that it cascades and meets the terracotta at the bottom. The effort that we're taking in terms of figuring out the details. Again, the camera housings are matching the terracotta. The blade signage is minimal, but I think from a visibility perspective, very appropriate for a retail tenant. And then we're doing, again, this kind of carved signage for the residential lobby. This is discussing the top. This is, we'll get into the visibility studies. From most views, this is barely visible, but we just wanted to show what we're proposing. All the way at the top, we have a guardrail that's metal with a very subtle cable mesh. And then we have the terracotta at the upper level after the setback. So here's an axonometric view to kind of make that clear. And then this is the overall building kind of view you would never see unless you were in a helicopter, but hopefully it helps to illustrate what we're proposing. Or maybe in an adjacent building if it's tall and in the right place. And has 2-point perspective. Magically. And then this is what you would see from the rear. So we have a terrace at the second floor. All the way below that, we have commercial, and then we have something I forgot to mention. We're using Peterson face brick on the front, and then we turn the corner with Glengarry modular red brick, which is very, very similar in color. And this is a view kind of looking at that Glengarry brick from the terrace on the second floor at the rear. Overall elevation at the rear. This is a rooftop. We have an accessible rooftop that has an elevator and egress stair that opens to it. And this will be accessible by both the upper level as well as the tenants below.
Can you just show where the mechanical equipment is going at the rear and on the main roof?
Sure, thanks for the reminder. So here on the bottom left of the image, that's the mechanical enclosure. Believe it or not, we have an ERV system that was the size of a small school bus. And that has been painfully relocated to the cellar to kind of minimize the amount of mechanical equipment to meet today's energy codes. So this is the smaller version after a lot of effort. And then we have condensers, on the top of the stair wall as well, that you can see here. Yep. And then kind of the last portion before the appendix with the floor plans is visibility studies. So here, beginning from number 1 all the way to the right, kind of closer to the 5th Avenue side, we're going to be looking west. And here, when you're closer to the 6th Avenue side, you can get a glimpse of our bulkhead as you move closer towards. Sorry, from 5th Avenue. As you get closer towards 6th Avenue, it disappears. And then you get close again, you start to see the stair bulkhead, just a little bit.
Wouldn't that actually be the elevator bulkhead?
Sorry, yes, you're right, correct, thank you.
That's the highest
Yeah,
elevator.
yeah, thank you, yeah. And then as you start moving your way towards Sixth Avenue, you can see it. Here is almost the most visible part, just because the neighboring buildings are so low. So if it helps anyone contextualize, I think it's the Spectrum building all the way on the right at the corner there.
Right.
And then there's another one that we just included, in case it's important. This is, all the way over at Sixth Avenue, just north of Waverly Place. So you can see a tiny glimpse in between the buildings. And then this is from, the kind of restricted or private access in McDougal Alley, not McDougal Street. You can see here. That's it.
Lots of floor plan.
Just a couple questions. Could you go please back to the depiction of the materials, the terracotta and the standing seam and so forth?
Sure.
The roof seems to be in different colors, the penthouse in different illustrations, which is the correct color for it?
So we're proposing a zinc, kind of gray material for the bulkhead. So what you're seeing on the right here, that's an actual kind of sample, image. So if
And
that helps.
that's the color that the zinc presents itself.
Yeah, we were hoping to go with a zinc gray that blends in with the sky as much as possible on an average day. That's the aspiration.
And then is there brick in the facade of the penthouse?
No, that's gonna be all terracotta panels to match the storefront.
Ah, okay.
It's the same terracotta as the sort
Yeah, same terracotta.
Mark, can you turn
And
on
that-
the people?
And that would be largely, as we saw in the visibility studies, it's not too visible from anyone.
Well, the penthouse itself.
The penthouse, it might be just from the side, I want to be careful with what I'm saying, but I think it's very minimal.
And well, we understand we can't have a mock-up, so the roof is occupiable at the level that you showed the elevator terminating.
Correct. It's
Right.
occupiable there, and we also have two terraces in addition, one on the, what we're looking at now, the setback between the cornice and the terracotta, and then another one all the way through here. On
And
the second
what
floor.
proposed is the railing that's depicted here.
Sorry, what material is it?
The railing on top of the penthouse. The safety railing.
Yes, is the question what material is it?
And what color is it?
So the metal, I think we're gonna match the aluminum in the storefront and on the, the upper level.
Okay, so it'll be aluminum colored.
Yeah, it'll be, so it's a slightly darker than the terracotta.
There you go.
And I think just back a couple slides when you were going through to show the windows on the front facade.
So the residential windows,
Yeah.
yeah, those are simulated double hung, high
Okay,
performance
the
windows.
question is, how much is that recess? The
That recess-
that shows well. How deep is the recess of the windows?
It's
from-
1 foot, I believe.
It's over 1 foot.
It's over 1 foot. Let me see. 14 inches.
14 and, yeah.
14 inches from the facade to the windows.
No, actually to the glazing itself, I don't have the dimension, but it's more than 14.
It's closer to 20,
Yeah.
18 to 20 inches.
And you're speaking from the facade, not from the,
From the engaged pilaster.
if you
for
take
example.
that, if you go just above the window to the, what would be a sign band downstairs. It's from the front of it to the window is about 20
Could be
inches.
about 15
I'm
to
just
16
not
inches.
hearing well.
Probably more than 14. We don't have the exact dimension, but 15, 16 it looks.
Okay, I'll say the neighborhood of 16 then. Give me just one moment. I'll be sure I have all my questions out of the way. I believe so. So, the committee, Susan, would you just recognize people along?
Sure, I'm gonna start selfishly with myself, and ask a couple of questions. Also, before I ask any questions, I really commend you on how you solved so many problems here, because I can really recognize how you had to synthesize, how do you design, a contemporary building within a historic district, respect and actually derive some pleasure, not just resent the existing language. And I can see in your, use of decorative brick that you really see what is around us here and value that. And frankly, we don't always see that. And I really appreciate that. You also obviously didn't ignore the very fundamental problem of sort of how to make friends with the building on the left and the building on the right. That's not so, that's easy, that's harder than it looks too. So, I really am very appreciative of the nuance and subtlety and appreciation for the vocabulary of the district that we see in this project. So now I have a couple of minor questions.
But I just
Okay.
add what Susan said there, that,
What's that,
another
Sean?
thing is that it doesn't end up looking like an addition to the building to the east, which could easily have been the case.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you really navigated all the sand traps that I can see. Anyway, just a couple questions. I would like to see, please, the visibility study from the Sixth Avenue position where it's the sort of most visible. And just if you could expand maybe what we see there, just so I can understand how much is there.
So this one.
Yeah,
You're standing at Pizza Funhouse.
they're horrible sign. A place where I will never stand, I can promise you.
Sign even meet landmarks.
No, it has a violation,
Oh.
so we'll see how long that takes.
It went up fast, didn't it?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of a sudden.
Sorry, wait, that's it, bullshit. You're in across there.
It was the third iteration attempt by the same owners in that space, so.
It was Serafina before and then. like,
I'm
was
pretty sure it's the
yours
same
before that?
owners.
No?
That-
Yeah.
There was gonna be Farinelli for a while, it was
Oh,
also the same folks.
yeah.
This one.
I didn't realize it was the same owner, just, putting out.
They have different brands, but yeah.
Oh, no, there's nothing.
I was rooting for Farinelli,
Thank
but
God, because where were you gonna get a slice of pizza?
Right. And a little fun.
Yeah. All right, what do we got? I see the elevator
This is the-
bulkhead, obviously, yeah.
So this is
Right,
the
so-
one place where you would see the penthouse and you're really
Right,
seeing,
that's what I'm trying to
the
understand.
side
How
of-
much penthouse do
you're
you
seeing
see?
the side elevation of the penthouse with a railing above and then
Massive.
elevator, stair and
And
mechanical.
mechanicals, okay,
So one place you'd see it from the street,
Yeah,
okay,
see it from the residences.
okay, thanks for clarifying that. The one thing that came up for me looking at it was that, with such, respect for, the vocabulary of the storefronts and you know, what the meaning of the storefronts in the village. Looking at the facade as a whole, the street level reads in a kind of more void way than the buildings around it. And I'm wondering if you had ever, you can see what I mean, you know, and from some of your other, from the rendering, you can see that, I think, even more clearly, if I remember correctly.
Do you mean the depth of the storefronts?
I don't
or
That so much as I mean the lack of a bulkhead at the bottom.
Oh.
A kind of anchoring,
Storefront
a
window.
kind of, yeah,
Gotcha,
yeah,
sorry.
a sort of, you know, a sort of,
Yeah.
some weight at the bottom to
Yeah,
kind of
that's-
balance out
Mm.
the rest of it, which is a very typical village historic storefront element. And,
And all the retail brokers will tell us, you want, you know, have less, and more. So,
yeah, no, I understand that, but that is a really, I mean, somebody should really do a study of whether that additional, you know, foot of glazing really impacts the bottom line, but that's another discussion. Anyway, but you see how it sort of creates a void underneath this really gorgeously substantial building, and I'm wondering, you know, if that's something you might consider or how you feel about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the comment. We did actually, so it's 8 inches now to match the storefront. We looked at 12. It started to feel a little hoof-like, but I'd be curious to revisit that. I mean, maybe there was something there. Maybe we actually want it to be more than 12.
All right, that's something to think about, I think. I mean, you see what I mean about the emptiness
Yeah.
there and how it sort of looks like the building is standing on feet then, you know, on these rather than, or on legs rather than having like feet.
Yeah, we actually, we looked at a lot of iterations, if you can imagine, before
I'm
we arrived
sure,
at this one,
yeah.
but, you can see that the depth and the width kind of taper as you move into the building, so they get a little deeper, and that was a negotiation of, you know, glazing wanting to be maximized for retail tenant purposes, but also the building touching and meeting the ground in the most substantial way that we could get. So there's a lot of compromise with our lovely clients
Yeah.
about kind of finding the right balance. But I agree with you, it might be worth looking at maybe this additional touch to kind of,
I think you might get a lot of bang for your
yeah,
buck on
yeah.
it. All right, thank you. I think that, oh, and just one blade sign, yes.
Correct, just for the
Yeah.
retail.
And is there any illumination of the ground floor that's,
So there's recessed illumination here, at all the bays. And then, you know, the blade sign, they might want to do something integrated. We were at some point, depending on, I think, the logo, it could be up to the retail tenant to
Sure.
decide too, but it could be beautiful to have an LED strip inside the metal.
Yeah.
And then have like a cutout logo that gets illuminated from the inside.
Mhm.
But
but that remains to be,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a separate.
Yeah, there are
that's a separate-
retail tenants or anything at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Brian or Valerie, do you have any?
Yeah, with the I'm gonna say recession, the recessed. I'm gonna call it, I say it all the time. I've seen on, well, it's quite elegant, and I don't know if that depth is adding to the void you're talking about or not.
I don't think so. but
Okay,
anyway, go on,
okay, I
sorry.
just wanna understand that, but, have you given any thought to what happens, I've seen some other retailers build out, to close that, because of, to put an extra door on, like, to
Like a
close off that
vestibule?
space, like a sorry, thank you, give me my words.
Yeah.
Like a vestibule because of the street life and just different things happening on the street. And so have you had any discussion of if that's something that, you know, you've thought of that could potentially happen in the future? And whether it's, you know, there for a time and then taken out, depending on just, I'm trying to be very, cognizant of, what could potentially go there. I know that's not before us now, but that's something that was kind of on my mind, and
I
how.
think tenants, retail tenants can install like canvas vestibules on a seasonal basis.
Right, of
That-
course,
that
of
doesn't
course.
even-
No, this is where they're putting it, just closing it off with glass and making it an.
They would have to go to landmarks.
Of course.
Right.
Oh, yeah. No, oh, no, I know.
I think that one thing is that we are planning on having a 24-hour door person. So
Oh, that's right.
So I think that will help to dissuade people from occupying that space potentially. And hopefully also provide a little bit more street presence, just on.
Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
Okay. And again, I know that that's not particular here, but just thinking of what could get added on later and had you thought of that in there. Thank you.
Brian,
Presentation.
Yeah, okay, let's start with, the code question. Did you maximize the floor area for this project? Allowable?
I believe we got limited on the bulk.
Mm.
So the bulk and the lot coverage are maximized.
The height and the lot coverage.
Yeah.
And the, street wall seems to match building on the right, but it's less than the building on the left. Is that a restriction or a choice?
Yeah, it's really a choice. We were cognizant of staying underneath 75 feet on the base plane. And you're asking about kind of the cornice height. So that was really, you know, a play of proportions. We took several passes at, you know, accommodating this terrace that happens here at the top. That requires a thick sandwich. And we actually accommodated for that with the brickwork to make the windows as uniform as possible. So we did a lot of geometry games there to try and, if you can see, there's slight, you know, accommodations for what happens at the top to get that roof terrace. So that's what seemed to work, both aesthetically and also pragmatically.
But also the street facade can be up to 65.
Yeah, we could
Sorry,
be
that was a
taller, we could be taller.
We as clients chose to do 6 stories instead of 7, so we could have put 7 stories, and which is what the building to the east did, and they would have slightly smaller ceiling heights, slightly lower ceiling heights, so we did less stories.
And that was my other question.
Yeah.
It seems that you were not able to either match the building on the right or the building on the left for floor heights or window heights, or, you know, that there's
Yeah.
no lining up there. So what did you find about the floors in those other buildings? You know, why are they so different than your floors?
Well, again, the one on the left has, I believe, 7 stories.
Yeah.
And we looked at a lot of variations of 7 versus 6, and ultimately chose to go with 6. So that we have more generous floor to ceiling heights. And then.
What is the typical?
Sorry, yeah, 11.
But
From
From floor to floor.
From floor to floor, not including any
You
of
asked-
the interior.
Here we're
makeup.
about 11.4, I believe.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, some of them, the top it even gets.
it's less, when you actually put sheetrock, it's, you know, a little over 10 feet, 10.3.
So here, so you have 10.8 on the 5th floor, you have 10.9.5, and then the bottom 3, you know, the bottom floors, so 3rd and 2nd are 9.9, clear under mechanical, or 10.9.5 without mechanical drops. So that's kind of where we ended up.
Okay, and then my last question should be, I think, the brick, can you tell me what the size of that brick is again?
Yeah, I might be wrong on the 1/4 inch or something, but it's roughly 21.
It's on one of the slides, I just couldn't read it.
21-inch by 4.5 by 1.5.
So it's a Roman brick, which means it's longer and shorter than a standard brick size.
Thinner.
Longer and thinner, yeah.
Yeah, well, Roman bricks have different dimensions, but they are longer and thinner for sure.
And every manufacturer has different.
Do
Roman
not
brick.
think that size brick is going to be found in that historic district, and therefore would, have trouble with that choice.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I had a lot of brick there. Yes.
Yeah. We did find, I mean, I just walk in the district like across Washington Square Park, I noticed Roman brick does exist. I didn't measure exactly the dimensions, but even when we were looking for Roman brick to work with, because we, all these plasters, that's one brick. So we had to adjust the design after we found the manufacturer that we fell in love with in terms of the actual brick. So it was very calibrated and we did a lot of work with that. I think in terms of how we address the context, we did see Roman brick. We love the red color, and this one in particular has a very vibrant kind of red orange that all of us just seem to take to. So we hope that, we weren't trying to mimic per se anything that we see in terms of an exact brick, but to give the kind of same level of respect to the brick that we do see and the same level of care with the brickwork that we find in the district.
Well,
It is a brick that you will see on turn of the 20th century buildings. As well as, and this Peterson brick is a brick that is much more common in new buildings in landmarks districts now.
did I hear you correctly saying it's 4.5 by 1.5 by
By 20.
21?
Correct.
That's, like I say, there's different size Roman bricks, and that's an extremely large and long Roman brick. I would love to see where that's being used, and it's totally a contemporary brand new building or something. Well, then that, we don't like to use that as a benchmark.
We have seen precedents. I'm happy to share. I don't remember exactly what cities they were in, but we've definitely seen them used.
Well, we like to think about Greenwich Village and, Community Board too, as our world.
Yeah, again, we didn't choose a specific brick and say, let's go with that one. We kind of looked at the options of bricks and wanted to sit harmoniously with the level of care that we found in bricks rather than, replicate or use a specific brick. But I appreciate the comment. I mean, we didn't try to find the exact dimension brick. We tried to work with something that we all liked. And then we found to be in a very elegant proportion and very special. Because it took a lot more effort to work with a non-standard dimension. In terms of the level of care that it entailed.
All right, we'll go to Bo who's also on the committee, and then Cormac, I know you have a question or two too. So
That's appropriate. Yeah.
we'll go to Bo and then Cormac. All right, Bo, please.
Hey, thank you. It's a very nice project. I congratulate you on that. I just have some questions on the bays. Could you go over what each bay is for? Because I thought I heard you say something about a community facility, and I'm just wondering about that.
Sure. So this one, all the way at the left of what you're seeing on the screen, that's an egress door. And then one over to the right, that's the entrance to the residential lobby. One over to the right of that, where you have signage at the transom, that is a community facility. And then the 3 bays on the right are retail, with an entrance furthest to the right.
All right, so the community facility is the one next to the what you described as the second from the left, the egress door?
No, it's the third from the left. The second from the left is the residential.
So leftmost entrance that has signage on it.
Where the cursor is?
I don't see the cursor.
So it's the third one from the left, where it says signage at the top on the transom.
Yeah, I see that. That is the community facility?
Correct.
And I presume you got an FAO or bonus for that. So what is the, where is the space? Is it only on the ground floor?
It's only on the ground floor, correct.
Okay. All right. So the other thing is you showed a slide and you referenced monochromatic, and I didn't quite follow what you were saying there. I mean, I like the way it looks, but I didn't quite follow what you were saying when you said that. And the other thing I'm wondering about is just a design choice to make the street bays and the penthouse the same color, right? That's strictly a design choice, right?
Strictly design choice, yeah.
Okay, and what about the mono? Go
It's
ahead.
not a design, it's not something that you would see together. You're not gonna see the ground floor and the penthouse at the same time.
Well, right, that's my point. So that's wondering why you just did it because it's like you liked it. I mean, I'm just wondering rationale, that's all.
We just wanted to limit, we always, I think my first studio critic always told me that the hardest thing in design is to edit. And so that's my natural inclination. So we just tried to edit the amount of materials we're dealing with.
Okay, so on that monochromatic, what were you saying on that? What was that point? You showed a
Sorry,
slide.
I'm saying less about it, but, so we were just proposing before getting into the materiality of the color and the brick. I think I was mentioning the top right quadrant. Do you see the brick detailing at the top right?
Yes.
As different from the other kind of three quadrants. So, I think I was just articulating that the brickwork is how we're differentiating to kind of hearken or recollect a little bit of what was on the site before in terms of the voids, not because it was particularly important, that void, but rather the difference in the dynamic pedestrian experience that we imagine that it elicits. So we were trying to kind of be sincere about the fact that we're proposing a 50-foot frontage building, but also express the tension between a kind of smaller scale by using brickwork.
Yeah, it looks good. I like it. And one last thing is, it's really a zoning question. What is your rear yard? Didn't look to me like you had any rear yard.
Yeah, it's not much. We have a commercial down there.
So you're not required a 30-foot rear yard?
Oh, we have 30 feet at the residential portion above. I can show you a section that illustrates that. Oh, that one did too. So, do you see the back left? So that's 30 feet from,
Right.
from the residential, basically for light and air.
But other than that, there's almost nothing, right? Is that right? On
Right,
the,
right, the first floor is the retail, and that goes almost to the property line.
right. Okay. All right,
So,
thank.
Susan, I have some questions, please.
Okay, go ahead, Chenault.
Could you show the ground floor facade?
Sure. Is this view okay, or do you want an elevation?
First, I would just be a little more aggressive than Susan was about the bulkhead height. It's one thing that kind of gets away from the reflecting historic to just being purely contemporary, and it's in other places been done so well, this sort of jars. The other is I gather that blade sign is just an example of the sign and not part of the application.
Correct. We don't know who the tenant will be or what their logo is going to be, so that's just a placeholder. But
where is our sign intended in the design?
So the sign is intended in that location, and that meets, I think, the dimensions are 18, I think up to 24 or something is what's allowed at staff level at LPC, so that's what we're showing.
Oh, where is it to be?
Oh, sorry, it's the, you see on the right, in between the two bays on the right, do you see the blade sign that's kind of matching the terracotta?
But are there intentions of any signage on the facade itself?
No, I mean, that could be up, I think, to the retail tenant, but we were proposing just blade signage for them.
Yeah, the retail tenants could apply
So
at
the
staff
only
level.
proposed signage is the blades, is that it?
It's just one blade, actually.
I'm just
Yeah,
not
we do
hearing
have,
you well.
Sorry, it's just that one blade sign for the retail. We're
Right.
also proposing, like a gold lettering decal for the community facility. And then we have the address, as an engraved, terracotta panel for the residential that you can see in this image.
Yeah, that is clear, yeah. The final thing is, I asked about the recess before. It seems inordinate, and are there examples of this being typical to some buildings that are being reflected in the design?
The recess of the storefront base,
The amount of the recess.
you know, I'm blanking on what they're called, but when we walked, the district a few times, what's that?
We saw them on Sixth Avenue, which was
I'm
kind of
sorry,
what led
just
to it.
move a little closer to the mic.
Sure, this kind of, the catalyst for this move was walking the district, and I'm blanking on the term for it, but we saw a few storefronts that were very deep that had displays, to take advantage of the three, glazed options. I don't know if there's a proper term for that, but that's, recessed storefronts, okay, there it is, from the authority. So, yeah, it was really just an investigation of how we could get something like that, because we appreciated the depth and the kind of curiosity that it elicits when you're walking down the street. And then we did some code research and discovered and stumbled across the limitations and tried to play within those constraints.
And are there other things that are similar in the district?
So I think before these codes, probably you had more pronounced recesses.
Yeah.
We're, building with today's code, so this is kind of maximizing the limit, but what we saw in the district is actually deeper than this.
I think you
Where-
might very well be citing like the Lifetime Health Food Store at Sixth Avenue,
Maybe,
between Eighth and Ninth Street for one, and there are
Yeah.
others like that,
And
yeah.
we just liked it, we thought it was
Yeah.
nice, but then we saw with code, it's not even possible to come close to that.
And
The
further
second-
on that, the parapet, I will need another slide to see it.
This one?
And this, yeah, and the straight on one, and the one that shows more the full facade, it almost looks like a
Just give me a second, I'll get there. This one?
in at least, but I think it was this one, maybe enlarged. It almost looks like an extension of a little canopy or a little awning because of its shape and it's so deep, rather than a terminal, what a parapet is supposed to do.
Hmm.
There it shows most clearly what I'm talking about. I don't know whether it's because of the drawing, or it just looks like the amount of recess that it has, which is rather considerable, or the amount of depth it has, it begins to look like a little eyebrow kind of sticking out, rather than something that says this is the end of the facade. Perhaps because it's flat on top.
The depth of the cornice, the projection of the cornice is probably very similar to what the tenements to the right have and what you see even on some of the buildings in your background. So usually we're, being pushed to have more prominent cornices and terminations to the building. I think this does that.
Okay, thank you. Susan, are there
Okay.
other people?
Yes, we've got Cormac Flynn with us this evening, and he's got a couple of things, I think, and then we'll go to the public. So Cormac, please, do you want to move closer to the microphone?
Sure, where is it?
It's just here.
I think we keep track.
Sure, I thought I was here as a member of the public. Okay. Oh,
Here, why don't you take my seat?
So I had a couple of just questions, and I apologize if they're not. I'm not as learned on these matters. I'm not on this committee, member of the public. You have an accessible roof. Do you plan lighting on the roof?
I think have minimal lighting, landscape lighting and lighting for, wayfinding, but we haven't gotten to that level of detail.
I raised this issue because when 171 McDougal was converted from a single-use church into condominium, like, became a major community battle after it was finished from the amount of light that was coming off its roof in its top corners. And likewise, there was a big community battle up the block when at five West 8th, when the Marlton Hotel was converted, over how much light and what kind of light there would be on the roof. Because that light on the roof goes right into people's windows, and so they would really prefer that you not have light or have very low light in the evenings, you know.
That sounds great to me.
Yeah.
And this is only accessible to the tenants in the building, it's not publicly accessible or anything like that, so
Sure,
I
but
don't think there's a desire for anything very bright up there.
sure, but you know. Tenants in New York, Greenwich Village residences are not anymore always so neighborly, especially in the era of Airbnb. And you know, I live on a residential donut on the other side of the street, and we've had lots of endless screaming battles in the donut as people tell people to shut up, you know.
Good times.
The best part was when people were shouting and chanting to shut the F up. And it turned out it was Bruce Springsteen doing a set.
Could we keep more to the architectural and landmark aspects, please?
Yeah, so, you know, on the lights.
The other question was, about the amenity space in the basement.
Yes, are you asking what is there?
Well, what is it? Because I'm looking at 1,100 square foot basement with bathrooms and a direct access to the street. And my community activists, mine says nightclub.
Oh, yeah, I don't think anyone wants a nightclub there. I can show you the floor plan. It's largely taken up by mechanical space and there's gonna be a little bit of, you know, whatever we can, design in those parameters for the residential. So I don't think the clients at all intend to have any kind of nightclub there.
No, it's for sale residences, will be the residences above, and then the store, the retail and the community facility are separated from the rest of the building.
So as you can see, you know, this is largely taken up by.
So mechanical in the front third, and then it looks like storage is for the residents in the middle.
Correct, storage.
And then you have this
Gym.
space here.
Fitness center.
Probably treadmills.
Fitness center.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be watching carefully on the use group that you see. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Cormac. Is there anybody else from the community board or the committee?
Hand up on the attendees.
All right, let's go to the public.
Davies.
Pete. Hi.
Hello, thank you. First, I just want to commend you on your, what you've done on that upper right quadrant. I think that's a really nice and subtle way of addressing that situation. But one thing, it seems that the materials you're showing us, there are some differences between what you're showing us and what was posted on the CB2 website, particularly in regard to the rear of the ground floor space, which shows in the posted slide 36. Yeah, right there, you show 3 windows and some sort of configuration with the door in the center. What I'm seeing on the CB2 website is one large window with a door at the far right of that wall.
We would always take what's presented at the meeting because there are revisions that come along that don't get reflected. So this is what we should consider.
Okay, so then, if we could look at slide 30. Or I'm sorry, slide 29. Okay, this, what you're presenting tonight doesn't show any pin mounted halo lit. What was shown in the previous was retail signage in the above the windows. So and those I commend you on that because they seem to comply with the 2-inch depth that are specified in rule 2-12. And I don't know if that's part of this anywhere tonight.
No, I'm not sure what PDF you have, sorry, but we're constantly working on this. So in the past week, we've gone over and taken a closer look at the blade signage that we're proposing.
Okay.
And so we should definitely be looking at this, which has evolved over the past week. And you can see here the dimensions are maximum 18 by 24 by 2 inches.
And it does seem that everything you presented that is signage complies with the LPC rules that could be approved at staff level rather than something large that would need community review.
Correct.
Yes, all the signage that we're showing here meets the staff rules as it is, and the tenants could come in and apply for that on their own at staff level. If they wanted
how
more,
much,
then
how
they would have to.
appreciative I am that that's the way you've done this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Ann Mitchell-Tree, please. I think we're allowing you to talk. Okay. Go ahead, Ann.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you. I thank you for making it. I see the brick, I see the window panes. Thank you for keeping it a low height. It looks good at first glance. But could I ask for page 19 or slide 19 for a second? Indeed. Okay, so I mean, I don't understand as I look at it. In the middle, it goes right down the middle. It flares out to the left and it flares out to the right, and then you come down the one top floor, next floor, the bottom 2 floors. The flare has changed. So now, if you see the stair step effect, the flare effect is over way on the right side. It doesn't continue on to go straight down the middle. Is that in layman's terms, do you understand what I'm saying?
Are you talking about the windowsill, the chamfer, all the way at the
gutters.
You're talking about the difference in the brickwork on the top right quadrant versus the other 3 quadrants, if you were to split the building up into 4?
Yes, when I first looked at it, I thought it was equal on both sides, that this flare out was equal going all the way down. I don't know how to say it, but now I see it isn't. It comes down the top 2 floors, then it moves over to the right and it goes down the right 2 floors. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, does this help at all? Understand, is this the top right quadrant?
No, you can see it. You don't need to do that. Yeah, page 19 is fine.
Okay.
If you put your finger at the top of the building, page 19 is fine. You can't see it from there. There. If you put your finger at the top of the building in the middle, and you go down, you lose that column. It disappears because half of it moved over to the right.
Correct. That's perfect. Yes.
Did you want it that? Okay. It would have been interesting if it had just gone all the way down.
That shift in the brick at the top right side from right to left is what's recalling that area of sky above what used to be a 3-story building. So that's very intentional. It is very subtle. We think it is a really nice thing, and as Edon talked about, the sort of play of light as you're walking up and down the street, differs. Actually, that previous one with the historic image was really good. So you can
right.
see on the right photo, there used to be a 3-story building with nothing above it. That shift in the brickwork
Yeah.
on the jambs going from left to, or from right to left,
Yes,
is exactly that subtle move to recall that area of where there was not a building historically.
right. Oh, all right, now then to page 30. Um.
And would you
Yeah.
please move along and be concise? The time is.
Okay, this is a very obvious and dramatic effect. If you look to the building on the right, you see it's black. And there's a black bar that comes down. That gives a very strong appearance. And when you look at your building, the next building, certainly by comparison, it looks kind of I've weak, it looks skinny, it looks spindly. It doesn't have that sense of strength. And it just, the bottom, what would happen if the bottom were black instead of tan, the way you have it? Is there something you can do to beef up that lower level? Because it looks spindly compared
we could
to
look.
everything else.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. We actually tried that and it felt too heavy for everyone. It made the windows also be in dialogue with the black, because the windows are a dark stained wood, and it made them look even darker. And collectively, we all decided that it was just too much.
Too dark.
But that's a good observation, because it was one of our first inclinations too.
Yeah, well, okay, one more thing. Where I live, if I come out my front door and I look across the street, I have lions, Lions, lion heads sticking out of these buildings, and obvious gargoyles and curlicues and all this decorative elements that have been put on these old buildings. And I'm just wondering, I would make it a shade darker, and can you put a like a lantern lamp, just a real good old-fashioned 19th century lantern or something on the floor, on the ground level, on the retail level, that harkens back to the 19th century? Or even a lantern light on the outside, or some anything?
I think we're sort of going in the opposite direction of contemporary and minimalist. Intentionally.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you. And we've got Zach Weinstein next. Hi, Zach.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, good.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm still muted.
No, you're
No, we can hear
back.
Okay, I'm going to assume that I'm audible. Yeah, just 2 comments. First of all, the storefront feels like something out of Soho rather than out of Greenwich Village. I think possibly because of the proportions of the windows, the lack of mullions, the height of the windows. I'm not sure if anybody on the committee sort of shares this concern, but it does not feel in keeping with the historic character of storefronts in this area. Second of all, and more important, the applicant initially, said that one of the inspirations for this design was the realization that there's historically a significant variation in building height on this block. And I think that the facade, it's a very interesting effect. I think it's an interesting facade, but it does absolutely, in my mind, absolutely nothing to convey that there was a variation in building heights. It does nothing to suggest that there was originally a void where a 3-story building existed on the west side of the site. I think it's important to suggest something like this, and I think the way to do it, the only way to do it, is to actually set back the west half of the top street wall, so that you have a physical break in the height of the buildings. I think anything else is really, it's kind of a sham to pretend that this is going to suggest a variation in building heights. And the unfortunate net effect of all this is that the entire west half of the block now is essentially a uniform height, fairly high buildings for the area. And there's no sense of a break whatsoever. I think that the effect is going to be somewhat oppressive, and it's certainly not in keeping with the historic character of this particular block front. So something more substantial to indicate a break in the building heights would I think be extremely helpful. Thank you.
We looked at many, many different versions, some less subtle, some more subtle. This is, as we said, been recognized, it is a subtle acknowledgement of what was there, but it is what we think works best. And the other versions that we tried, we did not think worked as well. And just in terms of height, I'll remind you that this was a 5-story building historically.
Half of it was a 5-story building.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Zach. And I see that Albert, who was having a hard time joining earlier, I emailed him my link and now he's got my name. Okay, Albert, we see you there. We know you're not me. So if you can go ahead and speak, thanks.
Could unmute him.
Can you unmute Albert?
You should be able to unmute.
Albert, can you unmute yourself?
How about that?
There you Okay.
Okay.
And Mark,
Okay. Can I ask a question?
please do.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry I have not been here. The thing that is most on my mind is the community facility. Was there any discussion? I know that's part of the application. Was there any discussion of that I missed?
No, just that there is space for a community facility, but I don't think any tenant or anything has been identified, and the community facility space is how big?
Roughly 500.
It,
500?
it's
It's
seemed
about
to be
500
in-
square.
seemed to be in the basement.
No, it's on the first floor. Yeah. So this is the first floor plan. You can see sort of in the center coming in and then jogging back with a bathroom at the back.
It's actually 360 square feet.
360 square feet,
Including the bathroom.
And
not including the bathroom.
what is the access to this? Through one of the commercial spaces?
It's through the front, one of the front door entries on the street, at street level. If you're reading from the bottom, it's the third bay from the bottom. So the
Okay.
bottom bay is the stair egress for the residents. The second bay is the residential entry lobby. The third bay is the community facility. And then the top 3 bays are for the retail tenant.
Okay. I wondered if this had anything to do with the Goodwill industries, which are being displaced.
No, Goodwill, no.
So there is, okay,
Goodwill was a tenant and they left.
there is no connection left in your plan
No.
with the Goodwill industries, correct?
No.
Okay. Could we go for a minute to the rear facade? I have some questions and somebody may already have asked.
Is that good?
Okay. Is the there is a setback for the second floor, which is quite deep. It doesn't look as if the commercial space is fills in up to the lot line. Is that correct? There is some open space there.
Yeah, so we are actually using our existing foundation walls to ensure that we do minimal, we minimally affect our neighbors. So we could have theoretically had the retail and cover the entire lot, but we chose to have actually slightly less square footage in order to minimize whatever potential impacts we could have on our neighbors during construction.
Is the roof of the commercial space, is that available for the tenants?
Yes, that'll be a tenant terrace.
Yes, single.
For one tenant, for unit on the second floor. Obviously, yes, obviously the one on the second floor.
For the second floor. And there's a parapet around it, correct?
That's on the guardrail. Parapet with a railing above, which in total would be 42 inches above the pavers. Minimum. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, now there was one more question. Oh yeah, on the front facade, on the entrances, on the ground level, I assume the entrance on the far left on the east is for the upper stories, correct?
Yes, where you see the 44 in this image.
And that door is totally different from everything else on the ground floor level.
No, you're talking about the emergency exit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the opaque one? You're talking about this entrance right in the foreground here.
That entrance, I'm concerned about.
That's the emergency egress, so that's the stairs for the residential and for the basement come out through that door. So that's just a service door.
I see. And it is what is the material? Is that wood, all wood?
It'll be aluminum to match, yeah, it'll be metal to match the storefront.
Okay, it is indeed very different from all the other, from everything else on the ground level. But I believe that somebody must have said that this is an eclectic neighborhood and it's very difficult to define a streetscape. I believe that's all my questions.
Okay, thank you, Albert. Thanks. Does anybody else have anything? Nope. Chenault, I think we're done with this part of the evening.
Everyone then has said their piece. Thank you. Okay, if we could dispose of this shared screen, we will begin the deliberation. I have made notes as the committee went, so if we could speak of each of them. Illumination was spoken about, and was that settled to satisfaction? Susan,
Yeah, I would say maybe we want to include a note to Cormac's point, just citing, that there needs to be sensitivity to neighbors in any potential consideration of future illumination of the roofs
of the roof we're talking about.
Of the rooftop.
And next, the bulkhead. Again, a Susan item. You want to see it higher, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, I mean, I don't know how others, the storefront. Okay, yeah. Not the elevator bulkhead, not
We
the
all
stair
agree
bulkhead.
on that.
Yeah, we want a huge elevator.
We changed the whole elevator. to bring it down by a second.
I'm
Next
sure,
is window recess at the ground floor. Did
what,
it
Chanel?
end up being objectionable?
Would you mind repeating that, Chanel?
The recess of the windows was, I'm not sure who said that. Oh, Brian probably. No?
Brian, yeah.
No, sorry, not me.
Oh, Val.
Oh, yeah. That was you, Susan.
The base.
The height of the bulkhead.
Does anyone have
We could-
objection to how much the windows are recessed on the ground floor?
I do not, no.
Seeing none,
Brian? Okay.
I could have misunderstood, but that's what I have. The am I alone about the recess of the windows as being very deep?
Are you talking about the windows on the ground floor or the windows?
Residential.
No,
Oh.
the main facade windows. I guess so.
I think you may be, Chanel. Brian, do you have a?
Well, they're deeply recessed. I'm actually surprised at how deeply they're recessed. It must have been a very conscious design decision. It adds to the historic character, I think. It brings back the masonry depths of a lot of the old buildings.
Yeah.
So I certainly didn't express any objection to that. What I was talking about was the size of the brick.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that for sure, yeah.
I was
But
only
in-
suggesting that to look at the depth of the recess, which doesn't seem residential. There's always the question of how you adapt and how far you go with the modern inspired by. I understand that, but
Right.
well, I won't pursue it if no one else won't. I don't feel so strongly that I'm going to vote against the resolution. So,
Okay.
Brian, matching height was your first remark.
Okay. Yeah, I asked about that. But we certainly got a good answer, very satisfactory.
Okay. The ceiling heights related to that, I gather.
Yes.
And okay, so we're down to the choice of brick.
Okay. So, yeah, it's an extraordinarily large and long brick. I just have trouble envisioning that as being at all compatible with the district. So I don't understand why that was picked. It sounds like it even challenged the designers to how to work with that size brick. So
And I think this goes back to the same thing of how far do you push toward contemporary or toward the referencing, the color references and the shape doesn't. Are people in accord with suggesting more historically shaped brick?
well, I would certainly suggest it.
Yeah, I am in accord with that. I have to say, honestly, I hadn't realized. I knew it was Roman brick, but I hadn't realized that it was 21 inches long. And when Brian astutely pointed that out, I was surprised. And I think, multiplied over the whole storefront, the whole building facade, it's maybe a little bold.
And I want to be sure
And
that I
without
understood
it
correctly.
contextual.
The only signage is to be blade signs, which the staff will determine. Did I
Right,
understand?
I'm sure in the future we can expect that the tenants will either have their sign approved at staff level, or if it exceeds what their mandate is, then they will come to us.
I can't see tenants not fighting something, having something other than a blade sign or over the window, something like that, but that will either come to us or the staff will decide it, so I suppose that we will say that it was proposed for only blade signs, so we have a record of what the applicant proposed, and then as things come along, we can refer back to that. The letters over the community room entrance were certainly acceptable. I've written bulkheads again, so that must have been important. Illumination. That's all the notes I have. Are there any other things that people want to call? As I see here, the only thing we're recommending denial of is the brick. The choice of brick. Is the committee agree with that's what we've decided?
Valerie? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Are there other comments that wish to be included?
Can I make a comment? No, during a session. Never mind, sorry.
That's okay. We should include an acknowledgement of the visibility study and that the penthouse it meets the standard of minimal, from what we can tell, is minimally visible. All right, Chanel?
Yep. Okay. I just wanted to highlight it so I don't miss it. I believe that concludes then. So we'll get a resolution out right away. Are there other things that are to come that anybody wants to speak of briefly? We do have I guess only Valerie is here, who wasn't here at the previous meeting. And Valerie, you've seen the report about the survey. And I'll work with Mark to come up on a template that seems reasonable so that it matches up what is on the website for people to register their complaints. And we'll then be able to track what's come through us in an easy way. That's
Chenault, may I ask a question? I was not here last week, of course.
The survey that I sent around.
Yeah, what is the event?
You have it.
Where does it go eventually?
It was sent about a week ago.
Yeah.
The result of the survey by the fellow who worked with us over a year.
And he's
concluded his work and put in his report, and it's his report that we have. I'll send you a copy of it to be sure you have it at hand.
Well, I have the copy that you sent.
Okay.
And of course I had many questions about it, but that's okay.
We can go over those, whatever questions you have, and maybe we can have a Zoom together to do that.
I'm just concerned about what the eventual resting place of this is going to be, of this report.
It's to it has a clear purpose, that we get a notion of really what the situation is in the district, which is, I think, clear from that. And then going forward, that we're able to track how reports go in of violations and presumed violations, and that we encourage the public to go through us to make them so that we know what's going on. Otherwise, it completely bypasses us if there are reports made.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we will meet again next month, and thank you all very much.
Next month I'll be
Night.
here early. Okay, thank you, Susan.
Yeah. Don't be stealing my name anymore.
There's something wrong at the board.
Identity theft. You never know when you're gonna face it.
Good night.